Hi, and welcome to this edition of UBC's Next Big Thing. I'm Rosemary Jean Thompson, and with me is Barb Pesut. And you are the Associate Professor in a School of Nursing here at UBC. But you're more than that. Many professors here are researchers, and that's something that you do around the area of palliative care in rural areas. Talk a little bit about that.
Palliative care is essentially good end-of-life care, but it's not limited to those last few days or weeks of life. We try to go upstream with individuals who are struggling with a life-limiting chronic illness. And what we do within palliative care is we have conversations around what's most important to people given the time that they have left. And so we have conversations around what's important that supports their quality of life. And most of all, during that latter period of life, there can be a great deal of symptoms. And so a part of palliative care as well is reducing symptom burden. So, in a nutshell, it's providing people with very high quality psychosocial, physical, spiritual support in a way that's uniquely geared to their perceived quality of life.
Now, you specialize in this kind of care within rural areas. How does care differ from urban areas to those that are living in the other areas, outskirts of major towns?
Yeah, I think if you looked at the actual principles of care and what was really important, it wouldn't differ all that much. It's still about excellent symptom management. It's still about high quality of life and about supporting family caregivers as they care for those at end of life. But what really differs is the context. So first of all, we generally have fewer healthcare resources in rural areas. We often don't have multidisciplinary, highly specialized palliative care teams. Healthcare providers in rural areas are what we call expert generalists. And so they may not be devoted simply to palliative care. They'll have to look after individuals across the spectrum of life, but it's still expected that they would have a higher level of knowledge than somebody that wouldn't care for people at end of life. So we have, in general, less formal healthcare resources. And then we have a context that is often very important to rural people. So people in rural areas often live there because they love where they live. They love the landscape, they love the geography, they love their relationships. So they know their neighbors, they have this spirit of community and mutuality, they take pride in working together. And so I would say what really differs is really taking into account those contextual factors. The idea that you might have less formal resources, but you also have a set of values and relationships that are extremely important to pay attention to when giving end-of-life care.
In your research, what have you truly discovered are the important pieces that you need to work with to have a successful time around the care of seniors during that time of their life?
So I think fundamentally it's a set of core values that really typify rural communities. In our research, we've done a fair number of descriptive studies throughout the interior of British Columbia, and people will say that, first of all, they want to be cared for by people that they know. As much as possible, they would like care to be provided within their home community where there are people that they know, and that becomes, I think, ever more important at end of life. Second, I think they want this idea of community and mutuality. They want to have the give and take that so characterizes rural communities, and they want people to be available for them. So in the absence of more sort of formal healthcare resources and these teams in urban areas that are available 24/7, they want those people that they know to be available to them to help them out when they have needs. The other thing that we've learned is that while family caregivers often have a common set of needs with their counterparts in urban areas, again, the resources are less for them. So they may have less home care support, they may have fewer people necessarily to call on within the healthcare system, but then they need a way to have their neighbors and friends connect with them to help them out with the needs that they'll have.
So how has your research helped the caregivers and those in the community move forward into the future, and how better can they serve this particular population?
Yeah, first of all, I think, along with my colleagues Carol Robinson and Joan Batorf, we've done some really good descriptive studies of what actually goes on at end of life for these families and patients in rural areas. And that's really important because there hasn't been actually a lot of rural end of life research done. And so, in any good research, you begin from a really strong understanding of what actually happens currently. In these rural communities, we're seeking to build models of healthcare at end of life that are built specifically upon the capacities of that community. So every rural community is going to have its own strengths and set of people that are involved, so it needs to build upon that rural capacity, and it needs to be sustainable, which means it needs to be cost effective. And so we have a research demonstration project in the Kootenays right now where we're trialing out one of these models. And so it's based around a nurse coordinator that's located within that community. It has a 20-member advisory committee based within that community that include all the key players, and we're actually going to be providing a supportive service 24/7 for people that live in this community.
Wow, well, that's very exciting. So if that project works and that simulation works, then something you can introduce into most rural communities?
Absolutely. We'll have a model that then we can try and roll out in other communities that, of course, will build upon their unique strengths.
Excellent. Barb, thank you for coming and sharing that with us and for doing the research that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps up this episode of UBC's Next Big Thing. I'm Rosemary Jean Thompson. Make it a great week.